Hazen-san, あなたは私たちがショッピング今日は行くだろうの約束しました。
You know, anime waifu Izumi Konata? When you're right, you're right. But I just can't put this fucking book down. Look at this. Luigi's got a dress on. He's starting to like it.
Hazen-san.
Oh, it's just getting good! You know I can never say no to that face. Alright, two things I want to make clear right off the bat. I fucking love a good empire builder game. From Calypso's Tropico, which has Critical's voice in it, which is kind of fucking cool, all the way to the more obscure King Arthur, the role-playing war game, which is a really great and pretty underrated game. Anywhere where you have to build and manage an empire and resources, handle these tricky political situations, all that stuff just turns my dick to granite. Though I have to admit that the two games that fit into this category that I've played the longest and had the most fun with have got to be Sid Meier's Civilization V and Endless Legend. Now, I played the shit out of Civ 5 before I ever knew what Endless Legend was, but as soon as I saw it on the Steam store, I couldn't help but kind of take a look at it, compare it to Civ 5 but more like a fantasy feel, add it to my wish list, and maybe take a closer look at it later, you know, when there's a sale or something. Playing both games though, there are a lot of similarities between the two, and I feel like comparing and contrasting both of them could be beneficial to anybody who doesn't already own both, and you know, maybe they're on the fence about buying one or the other, or maybe both, like I did. One big part of any game where you have a city is growing that city. Now, growing a city in Civ 5 is a lot like growing a garden. You plant your seeds somewhere with good resources, preferably near some water, then you wait a little while, and then you reap the fruits of glory! Your area of influence gradually expands, giving your citizens a little more tiles to work as they themselves grow in numbers, and your workers and your great people, and more tiles to improve. Weeds occasionally pop up in the form of barbarians, or if we've learned to all call them affectionately, fucking barbs. Now, all turn-based strategy games are slow, but Civ 5's pace has a lot of time in the beginning when it feels like there's just like absolutely nothing going on. You don't start with anything but like a settler and a warrior, and while the warrior can explore, he's not nearly as zip-zop zoopity-bop as the fucking scout. When it comes to like the hills and the shit like that, scouts will just fucking kind of scoot right through all that shit like it's nothing. I wonder what kind of luxury resource this guy's been getting into, am I right, fellas? And in comparison, Endless Legend's city system is a lot more like buying real estate. You get to see part of what you're getting unless you take more time to explore. But when you finally settle, you move in and you find out your region has minor factions. Also, an honorable mention goes to the map view. When you zoom all the way out here, you get a really cool like cloth map looking point of view with all the regions and borders and really neatly labeled. It's really fucking cool. The minor factions get upset when you move into a region that they pretend is theirs, but you're usually too big of blubbering pussies to do anything about it. You can bribe each individual village in a region to pacify them, but you won't. Or you can parlay a single village into an active quest for them to pacify the entire region, and you might. But the one thing I've found the most effective is just crushing all the villages one by one until they all shut the fuck up and let me use my influence points to assimilate them, so I get an empire-wide bonus for each village that belongs to that tribe I pacify, which will be a lot. Also, when you assimilate a minor faction, you can start producing their unique units in your cities. This is especially useful if you play an empire like Roving Clans that don't normally have any flying units, and you make friends with a minor faction that has flying units. Like weird winged demons from Dark Souls that carry you to Honorlando. I know you guys like that game. Civ 5 has similar things to the minor factions called NPC like city states that you can bribe, you can conquer, or you can do like passive quests for. And they actually come in handy way more as an ally in the late game once the World Congress is founded, which you won't know anything about unless you got the expansions. Which brings me to my next point about a key difference in Civ 5. There are expansions for Civ 5, and if you don't get the two main ones, Gods and Kings and Brave New World, you basically don't have the full experience of Civ 5. Retail these can cost you a lot more than they should for a game this old, but Civ 5 and its Gold Edition kind of go on sale here pretty frequently on Steam, so just be patient and get everything at one time. While these expansions drastically change the game in a number of positive ways, you don't want them to change your wallet in a negative way any more than they have to. So wait for a fucking sale. The city-states are way more useful than the minor factions probably ever will be, because they don't bitch unless you march your armies through them, which to be fair is understandable. And even then it only pisses them off if you're not at least friendly with them. When you do befriend or ally yourself with them, they give you special luxury resources that make your people richer and happier, units to help you crush those lesser than you, votes in the World Congress so you can force embargoes on people who don't worship the Dark Lord Cromdar, and sometimes great people if you have the right social policies adopted. Minor factions are cool and all, but Civ 5 really takes the cake when we're talking about NPC factions by a fucking mile. There's currently one expansion for Endless Legend for $10 that adds some kind of Titan type units and a few unique buildings that are reminiscent of the wonders from Civ 5. The problem is that there's really only one great wonder you can build per era, and once someone builds it, no one else can. There's also some little quests that you compete to complete first every era, but it never tells you that you can find them in your technology screen, which makes me want to headbutt my fucking grandma. Like, seriously guys, why can't you just tell us where to fucking look for this stuff? I don't want to hunt this, I just want to do it and get the rewards. Holy fuck! My hope for future expansions for Endless Legend is that they'll have more things like you see in Civilization that are kind of smaller, like religion, World Congress. You know, the dragon people would probably completely dominate that. Religion's always great because you can name it whatever you want in Civ 5, and you can use it to make all your opponents and allies submit to the one true god, Lord Cromdar, King of Jumboheads, and force them all to tithe gold to your empire, and if you choose Catholicism, possibly their boys as well. And yeah, I've seen the new expansion that adds espionage and an entire faction that's their thing, but I haven't played it yet. I'm sure it's awesome, but I haven't played it yet, so I can't put it in this video, sorry about that. The one thing I do hate about Endless Legend's current add-on system is that there's at least one add-on that you can only get by purchasing some other game made by the developer Amplitude Studios. It's a playable race, or should I say non-playable, since I don't have whatever the other game is. That supposedly isn't very different from the other humanoid race, the Vaulters I think it is. It's not anything that's making me feel any pressure to buy whichever other game they're trying to passively sell this way. The problem I have is that I had to go to fucking Google to figure out why this empire was in my list to choose from, but was unavailable, as nothing in game that I could find at the time explained why this was the case. Amplitude, for the love of God, please explain these things. When you have an expansion that changes some goals you can have, then, you put it in the tech tree of all places. We need to know that. When you have a race that we can play as, or maybe not, we need to know how we can play as them if we can't buy them. It makes me want to twist my dick off and throw it in the river. Combat in both games is awesome, even if Civ 5's is kind of a little more passive. Both have really satisfying turn-based combat that takes place on the same map and hexes that you move your units around on. The main difference is that when a battle starts in Civ 5, two individual units just duke it out until one dies or retreats. In Endless Legend, two armies expand over nearby hexes on opposing sides and duke it out until 6 battle phases are over and the loser runs like a huge pussy. Or one side is completely obliterated and the victor does helicopter dicks all over their corpses. If you have allied armies nearby, they can also join in as reinforcements for extra ball-busting action once some of your original soldiers have been defeated. Also, there are no nukes in Endless Legend. Though the expansion with the Guardians sort of makes up for this, I guess. Nukes are in the base game of Civ 5, and they solve shit pretty quick. Of course, units in Civ 5 are all historically accurate as possible and go along with whatever civilization that you play as. This gives off a really cool historical fiction vibe in the early stages of the game, which kicks tons of ass. But there's just something so badass about taking a couple of dudes with swords and crossbows and tearing a couple of gigantic cyclops as a pair of new fucking assholes. Killing imaginary things that are bigger than you is cool as fuck. The overall feel of Civ 5 is historical fiction and realism. Except for fucking Gandhi, who nukes everyone he comes in contact with like a four-eyed fuck. When it's easier for you to make friends with Attila the fucking Hun than Rome, then you know you got some social issues, man. Maybe Sweden can teach you how to make some new friends or shove some dynamite up your ass. Civ 5 also teaches you some history via its Civlopedia, an encyclopedia that explains what buildings, units, and civs all do in detail, and even has some further reading on the real history and culture behind a lot of the things in the game and how they influence the real world around them in history. This is awesome because learning about history is for winners. Complaining about history is for crybabies and assholes. In contrast, Endless Legend does have a really awesome fantasy feel though. I can't help but imagine like a little scale of old school Roman Discovery Channel documentary all the way to Lord of the Rings with Tyrion Lannister and Jon Snow somewhere in the middle, and these games falling somewhere around here on it. I love fantasy that involves political intrigue, and I love strategy games that let me be part of that intrigue, so naturally I was drawn to Endless Legend as soon as I heard about all that. It really does do a better job than Civ 5 of immersing you in the world, but that's more easy for Endless Legend, partially due to the fact that the world you're on and its races and cultures are completely new to you. Unlike the Earth-based civilizations, wonders, units, and places that we already mostly know about in Civ 5, especially when they're all scattered around like, you know, the Americans building the pyramids in 6000 BC or something crazy like that. The one thing I can say this game deliberately immerses you in that Civ 5 could take a cue from is the empire planning feature. Once per so many turns, you get a chance to pour some of your influence points into your economy, science, military, and or population for a long-term empire-wide boost to the growth and prosperity of one of those focuses. This is cool as shit, and it makes you feel like a super king. Civ 5 has some cool futuristic technology late game though, including badass robots and XCOM soldiers if you have the expansions, which you should. Where Civ 5's late game really falls short, however, is the inability to automate cities' choices for building and shit. When you have like 10 or 20 fucking cities on a huge map and everyone's crying like bratty kids on a plane for you to end your turn, and you're screaming and you're sweating and you're yelling at them over the mic, I'm sorry I have to go and manually pick like 18 things for these idiot cities to build because I can't hire governors in this fucking game. Managing cities in late game in Civ 5 makes me want to take a massive shit all over my computer chair. Amplitude probably knew what a pain in the dick it was to try to manage this shit like Civ's late game, as anyone who may have played it probably does, so they instead have a system where a hero unit can serve as a governor and you can automate what your town produces through them. The hero units are cool as shit, not only for the ability to handle bullshit paperwork for you, but they also give bonuses to your city like economic growth or slavery. They can also lead your armies into battle so that you can bruise up even more ass even faster. Heroes make your shitter-shattering efficiencies fly off the fucking charts. The great generals in Civ 5 are sort of like nickel-plated heroes that only help with a small battle buff unless you play as that Chinese woman. And even then they still can't govern your damn cities, which sucks shit in late game. But the heroes can't build cool tile improvements that you can use to fuel the fires of Lord Cromdar's Faithful, which sucks shit all game. Speaking of which, Civ 5 does have something awesome other than city-states and historical accuracy that Endless Legend could take a cue from, which is great people. Every once in a while, depending on what your specialists in your city are doing, besides finding every last asshole in the universe to lick, your city will automatically produce a great scientist, prophet, engineer, general, artist, musician, etc. All of them can do some really kick-ass shit, like produce a great work for one of your art slots or music slots, lead troops and build citadels over your opponent's land so that you can lean in close and hear the tears falling from their faces as they lose their precious little gold mines. Get you an instant huge boost to technology research that is usually enough to go ahead and get whatever will essentially be a free technology. Found the religion of the Dark Lord Cromdar, and all of them can build some unique tile improvements that kick turbo ass if you have the right civilization or social policies to get the most out of them. My personal favorite is the little religious site. You hook that up with the thing, you know, the pie, apple pie, you got yourself a hamburger. Civ 5 also has wonders, which you can't build in Endless Legend unless it's part of a quest, you have the expansion, or you play as the tree hugger elf guys. Wonders are unique buildings that tear so much ass you'll want to jerk off out of excitement when you finally complete them, unless someone else completes them when you only have a few fucking turns left, leaving you with a scrotum like a pair of blue raspberry dum-dums. Wonders rule because you have to race to complete them, because there can be only one of each wonder in the whole world. I love building wonders while playing against friends on Skype, only to hear them piss and moan about who the fuck keeps building all the goddamn fucking wonders! Spoiler alert, it's always me. Wonders give you awesome bonuses and resources and later tourism, which you can use to make cities just fall under your control, right out from under your dipshit opponents, and they won't even know what the fuck happened, because no one pays attention to culture in this game for some reason. Endless Legend doesn't really have much in the way of wonders or a culture tourism type system, which makes me want to slap the shit out of a gorilla. But their influence points do let you do a lot of cool shit, like assimilating pissant minor factions, planning your empire out, and some factions have other things you can do with them too, though I'll admit that perks and disadvantages to each faction in Endless Legend seem pretty fucking endless themselves. There are literally like more than 10 unique buffs and things for each empire you can play as, and if that's not enough for you, you can actually make a custom empire and add whatever the fuck you want to it. I'm not sure if it works on multiplayer, as I haven't played too much multiplayer in Endless Legend, but if it does, ooh mama, am I gonna stomp some people with my Roving Clans offshoot. Both games have ruins to explore. The only real difference is that the discoveries and rewards are different in each game for each ruin that you explore. In Civ 5 you usually get some citizens, science, money, or culture. Sometimes you'll get an advanced technology for the unit that explored the ruins, which gives you a small edge. In Endless Legend you can get all those things minus the technology, but sometimes you do find quests which leads to awesome legendary weapons, which kicks ass. I like Civ 5's user interface a lot more, especially the notifications, which are more colorful and easy to identify. The user interface in Civ 5 is much more easy to navigate too, but this is partially because the game itself isn't as insanely deep and detailed as Endless Legend is. This is both good and bad though, as I do love simple user interfaces, but I also love deep and detailed games. Endless Legend is also the first sandbox kind of turn-based strategy game I've ever seen that has a quest victory. If you can complete your empire's main quest, which unlike things like Civ 5 and Beyond Earth is unique to each faction, you can win the game. It can really get challenging to do this, and especially with an empire like Roving Clans that can't declare war, you'll have to buy some mercenary units and switch them over to privateers or somehow dupe another faction into war with you if you even can do that with Roving Clans. Civ 5 has some cool realistic type maps, but I really prefer Endless Legend's various map types. Other than the standard continents or Pangea, Civ doesn't really have too much in the way of variation. It's usually just based on some real place on Earth, if it's anything at all. There's some map packs and DLCs, but paying for maps is for Call of Duty players and fucking tourists. Endless Legend, however, has some really cool shit like New World, in which everyone starts on one continent and is always trying to reach the other continent first to conquer it, get the unique resources that it contains, and make friends with or crush the local tribes that live there. Civ 5 has a good amount of micromanaging stuff you can do, but unlike Endless Legend's system where you can and almost have to outfit and or retrofit your soldiers and heroes with newly developed equipment, some of which is legendary, which is cool as shit, Civ 5's units always just upgrade with whatever technology you already have once you bring them into your territory and upgrade them. And rather than retrofitting, you can just spend gold and they just kind of have the new shit. In both games you can buy buildings and units in lieu of waiting for them to be produced from resources, which rules your face with a purple pimp cane, because both games have playable people that are really focused on balling like Scrooge McFucking-Duck. I like the simplicity of Civ 5's modernization system more for it not really getting in my fucking way, but there is something about equipping a legendary bow to a ranged hero that just makes me feel like I could go 10 rounds with a mutant alligator. One thing I feel I would be remiss if I didn't mention that was vastly superior in Endless Legend is the diplomacy system. Especially if you're playing as an empire that has certain advantages for it or in the marketplace, like the dragon people and the Roving Clans. You can trade anything, including technologies that I think you may even be like unique to some empires, or you're not supposed to get them but in the later era, maps, fields of vision, and of course all types of resources and money. You can shift from peace, alliances, Cold War, straight up war, and you can even ban people from the markets if you have a perk. which unless they get the keys to the marketplace, which is a perk they can get, and you can't ban them if they have that. It's so deep and so much fun to play around in that it's almost like another game unto itself. Civ 5 really missed a huge opportunity here. I mean, come on, guys. Why the fuck can't we trade technologies and maps with other people? Why? Why not? Some things I really like about Endless Legend that I didn't mention before were the diversity of the empires. Ranging from people who can only ever found one main city, like the robot Westboro Baptist Church people, to people who can move their cities, and the really kick-ass summer-winter system. In the summer, it's easier to move around and grow food. In the winter, people get slow, stupid, and everything sucks worse than fucking Canada. Also, each empire has its own main story quest that you can play through that's even active in multiplayer and can net you some huge bonuses along the way if you keep up with it, and if you complete it, you win, of course. Also, the Roving Clans are incredibly unique. I know I keep talking about these guys, but I love playing as them. They can't declare war outright, but they can ban your fat ass from the marketplace and also make use of the privateer feature way earlier than anybody else in the game. Privateers are especially fun in multiplayer because if a lot of people use them, they can make your opponents get so frustrated they have a fucking aneurysm, then you win by default. Likewise, Civ 5 has some really awesome things that deserve a mention. The first thing being the tourism culture system that I was talking about earlier, implemented by the Brave New World expansion. You can rip away the control of cities that you may not even fucking heard of or seen, just simply for your cultural influence over them, determined by your tourism being stronger than their own cultural resistance. Civ 5 also has a Civilopedia, which I mentioned earlier, but I'm gonna mention it again because learning history puts hair on your chest, ladies. Both games are fucking awesome. Let me just say it again. Both of these games are fucking awesome. They rule so hard, and I put so many fucking hours into them because they're just so much fun to fucking play, man. Especially if you have other friends that have these games. The one thing about Civ 5 though is I always seem to have friends who have Civ 5, but not the two main expansions after Civ 5, which really sucks because they completely change the game and make it 110,000% better. It really kind of boils down to what kind of world you want to play a strategy game in and how much micromanaging you like to do, or how much money you have. If you're broke, kind of boils down to what's on sale, which eventually both of them will be. Endless Legend was an early access game on Steam, if I remember right. It made it out of the dreaded early access hell that took some really cool games from us like Starbound and Towns, and it's a full game now. Both games will always have a place in my heart, and they'll probably always be something I'll play for as long as I'm able to play games. Even after like Civ 6000 comes out or something. I recommend both of these games to anybody who likes turn-based strategy games or empire builder games. And to the developers, I really recommend making friends with your competition, or at least playing their games if you don't already. Maybe you could use some of the ideas and make them yours, or make an even more kick-ass package for your games. Go buy both of these fucking games or go to hell.